Welcome to this series on how to improve your time and feel without your instrument. So the first and obvious question is, how do we do it? And I think from what I've studied that what we do most is look at the kind of core elements of music and apply them to some exercises to improve our time and our feel. So the first thing would be vocabulary. What do we play? Then we could move on to the pulse, knowing what the pulse is, where it is, and are we able to feel the pulse when we play. Then we could move and look at tempo. Do we have a strong tempo or do we speed up and slow down? And then the last element that I would look at is subdivision. Can we feel the subdivision? Do we know where they are? And have we got that in the background when we're playing? So we're now going to take a look at each one of those just as an introduction so we know what they are. So let's start with the pulse. For those people that aren't aware or don't know or just haven't come across it, the pulse is the rhythm at the centre of the music, or the beat at the centre of the music. If you clap your hands to a song, or if someone counts you in, 1, 2, 3, 4, that counting isn't relevant to one specific instrument or what they're playing. It's the whole band. Every instrument takes the same pulse to know how to play their particular part at the right speed. So it's essential when you're playing that you can play your part, but you're also aware of where the pulse is, because that's what the rest of the band are following. To move on to the subdivisions are how the notes are broken down. So if you are in 4/4 and you have a pulse, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're playing over the top of that and you're playing da 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 da, you can't just think 1, 2, 3, 4 to play accurately. You need to divide those 4 beats up into smaller parts. So the subdivision is how we divide those 4 beats up, or whatever beats we've got. You can divide them into 2, you can divide them into 4, you can divide them into 6. There's various ways. But you need to be familiar with these ideas, and you need to be able to use it to make your placement of notes more accurate. So that's the subdivisions. Moving on from the subdivisions, we've got tempo to think about. Now, tempo is obvious to most people. It's the speed you play. The issue with tempo is keeping it the same. So you want to work on being able to pick a tempo and maintain it for long periods of time. This is really important because on gigs you have the influence of everyone else playing around you. Everyone feels time a bit differently. So if they pull forwards or they push back, the first thing is, if your sense of tempo is good, you will notice it. And then you can kind of help to bring it back to where it should be. So tempo is a really important thing to work on. I suppose the last one, or maybe the first one, is language. It's what you actually play. So you can look at rhythms in all sorts of ways. You could study different time signatures you don't know. You could study note groupings that you're not familiar with. You can study a grid that you're not familiar with, more stuff on triplets and things like that. And this would all broaden your language. It will increase the number of things you are able to play. In this series, I'm going to use some fairly basic language that you probably all know, because although you can improve your rhythm through language by learning more rhythms, it doesn't make you a better player. And I want the focus of this series to be taking what you can already do and making it better. So let's get into the first thing. Before we move on to the next part, I'd just like to talk a little bit about practice and the best way to execute these exercises and many others. From what I've studied, I found that the way most people do it is you use a metronome, you put it on the crotchet beat, you would play along, and you keep working on it, maybe start very slowly and speed up, and then when you are happy with what you can do and you've got it, you'd move on to the next exercise. This is how I studied for a long time, and I know this is how lots of people study. I do, however, think there's a better way. So I would like you to consider what you're learning. When you begin a new piece, subject, and you take a part to learn, you start really slowly and you're unable to play it. And you might spend 10 minutes getting to the time of then being able to play it. So after that 10 minutes you've got it, you will probably play it for a couple of minutes, be happy with what you've done, move on to the next bar or the next part. The difficulty with that is you have 10 minutes of wrong and 2 minutes of right. So when you come back the next day, your muscle memory is more conditioned to playing it wrong than it is to playing it correctly. So what I would like to suggest is you take any exercise, you work for as long as you need to get it correct. And that may be, let's say it's 10 minutes for argument's sake. Then when it's correct, you need to play for at least 10 minutes just to cancel out all the wrong playing you've done. And from there on, you're investing into playing it better. And if you take that approach, you'll spend far more time on each thing. And when you come back the next day, hopefully it will all be there and you'll be ready to move on. So give it a try and let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's move on to the next part.